My Last Duchess, comfortably and easily my favourite poem in this anthology, so let's get stuck in. So just like normal, we're going to arts war it, but to be honest, arts war really doesn't do this poem justice. We could talk about every single line if we had all the time in the world, but I'm just going to break it down to the key essentials that you're going to need for your exam. So, My Last Duchess absolutely stinks of power. This poem is dripping with power, and that's why I think it's really, really interesting and one that's highly likely one day to come up in your GCSEs. This is a story poem, it's a true story. It's based on a guy called Duke Alfonso II who ruled a place called Ferrara in Italy between 1559 and 1597. Now this chap had 3 wives, and this is a poem about his first wife, who was a lady that he married when she was only 17 in 1561. But she died only 2 years later in very, very suspicious circumstances. The legend is that he had her killed out of jealousy, and that is an idea that Robert Browning takes up and runs with throughout his poem. Now, throughout this poem, he is taking a messenger around his rooms where he's got all his nice sculptures and all his nice paintings, and he takes this messenger to a painting on the wall of his old wife. And when he talks about her, commenting on her character, he suggests that she was unfaithful to him and hints they might have killed her because of it. Now, all of this is a threat because this messenger that he's showing him around is actually a messenger on behalf of a count whose daughter he is hoping to marry this duke. Throughout this poem, the duke is making himself look arrogant, insensitive and selfish and completely obsessed with his power. So, as I say, it's dripping with power. We've got the power of the narrator over his dead wife, but we've also got the power of the dead wife over the narrator, and that's a really key point I really want to stress today. We've got the power of the patriarch, which is the male head of the household. It's quite clear he's the one in control. We've got the power of violence and the threat of it and the damage it can cause. We've got the power of love to corrupt and destroy someone. This man is, when all is said and done, heartbroken and disturbed and humiliated by what has happened because of his relationship with this lady. And we've also got the power of power. He is desperate for power, it's addictive to him, and it's all consuming into all aspects of his life. We've also then got the conflict in the narrator's belief of his control and the reality of her control over him. He thinks he's in control, he is not. We've also got the conflict of his emotions inside him. Despite that positive facade and that strong facade, inside he's got a conflict of love, jealousy, paranoia, betrayal and many other emotions swirling around. So the key messages, I think we could break it down into 3. Browning shows the irony of power, that the power you exert over someone actually shows the power that they have over you. He also makes the point about the devastating consequences of power. This poor lady died as a result of this man's obsession with power. But he also shows how power becomes an obsession that determines our choices, our views, our language and all aspects of our life. So, techniques. I would look definitely at this symbol of the curtain. This idea that he hides her because even in death he still controls who she sees and who sees her, so he's got a complete obsession with having power over this lady. But it also indicates the power that she still has over him. He can't let go of her. Even now he can't let her go and be free and be seen and go off. He has to have that little sentiment of control over her because she still controls him. Or perhaps she has covered because of his shame and his hurt, so this obsessive power is actually just a facade for his damaged and weak heart. I would then look at the fact it's a dramatic monologue. So here he is, he's controlling the conversation. Despite how shocking this revelation is that he's had his ex-wife killed, he doesn't allow the messenger to comment or show any sort of reaction. So this might show the emotional numbness that he has with his supreme power. He can't fathom or understand why it'd be a bad thing, so why would he let someone respond? Maybe it shows his desire for control over all aspects of his life, so even down to this conversation, he wants to control that as well as his old wife. But it also reflects the power that he has, that he's allowed to act like this uninterrupted. Anyone else would stop this guy and be like, mate, that's not cool, why are you killing your ex-wife? This man has such power and such control that this messenger wouldn't dare interrupt him. So words, seems really obvious doesn't it, My Last Duchess, but it's a really rich quote for you to dig into. So first of all we've got this possessive pronoun my. This indicates the power and the control that he has over her. She was his, she was my Duchess. So, and the fact he still describes her as if she's still his, she still shapes and impacts his life even now. She still has control over him. But then we've also got last, and there's 2 ways you can look at this. First of all, it's last, implying that she's the latest one. There will be more, outlining the power of the patriarch. Or alternatively, it might imply that she was his last love, his last true love, and he's been so hurt by her, therefore showing the destructive power of love. Another word I would be picking up was this little cluster word here, as if she ranked my gift of a 900-year-old name. So he uses this noun gift, so he sees the power and authority that his name commands as something she should cherish and value, and he doesn't understand why someone wouldn't appreciate and love this power that he can give to her. The fact she doesn't would suggest there are more important motivations than power and control. And this juxtaposes the glamour of his name with the simplicity of the cherries. He gets really upset that the geezer in the orchard gets her some cherries, and she is just as happy with these cherries as she is with his gift of a 900-year-old name, which shows that power does not come from wealth or history, but actually from sacrifice and care. I would then look a little bit further at this 900 years old, especially in those dashes that he drags it out. He makes a really strong point. You can almost hear him emphasising it. 900-year-old. So his power is determined by the legacy and the history of his name in the Italian court. It stretches out to emphasise his outrage, his anger that she does not appreciate this. But I think this also questions the legitimacy of his power. He's not got power over her because he's such a charmer, because he's so loving, or because he's so kind. He doesn't have power over her because she loves him. He feels he has power over her because he's inherited it. He thinks he deserves power over her simply because of who he is and where he was born. So, alliterations, this one down here, notice Neptune. So we've got these alliterative end sounds. Now, end sounds are sharp and quick, reflecting the speed at which he wants to move on and see other artworks. He's just spent a whole monologue talking about his dead wife, and then quick as a flash he skips on to talk about his statue of Neptune. So that might reflect he can't cope with the pain, so she has power, or maybe it shows that she means nothing to him, therefore he's got power. But the richness of this alliteration comes in the symbolism of Neptune. Neptune is the god of the sea and is associated with violence and strength. Whenever you see Neptune, he's got his pitchfork in his hand and he's fighting the waves or fighting a seahorse like in this poem. So this reflects how he admires and respects the ultimate power and control. He desires this violent command just like Neptune. But the fact he also chooses a god shows that he reflects how he played God and he decided when she lived and died, and he desires the same power and control that a god would have. However, the god he chooses is an ancient and relevant one from ancient times, reflecting how his principles and his morals and his dedication to this power and control is old-fashioned and from a bygone time. Finally, in terms of the rhythm and rhyme, there's an iambic pentameter with rhyming couplets throughout: wall, call, hand, stands, and so on. So the fact Robert Browning gives this Duke such a tight control over his language as reflects how he has control over that as well as his wife. He demands power over all elements of his life. But it also is a sign of elitism and education, emphasised by the fact he's got a 900-year-old name, that he is brought into an elite society, so therefore he's been educated to a very, very high level and high ability, and knowledge would have been power. But this is also an intimidating self-mockery, this little bit here. After showing he clearly has great skill in language to be able to use such consistent iambic pentameter and rhyming couplets, he then kind of mocks himself, saying, in speech which I even had you skill in speech which I have not. Now this intimidating self-mockery also shows that he is in control, he has power, and he's used to getting his own way. I would also look at this little bit here. Despite the consistent iambic pentameter and the consistent rhyming couplets, the little wobble is this bit in the middle where we've got increased caesuras and increased broken sentences with lots of dashes and so on. So his control and his order is momentarily broken, probably because of anger or sadness or jealousy, showing the power of these emotions and the power of the hurt that he has. This also reflects how, despite his authority, he's emotionally weak and she has the power to undo him because of the memory of how much she scorned and hurt him.